Summertime, and the living's easy. Rallies on the microphone with Ross MG. All the people in the dance will agree that we're well qualified to represent the LBC. Me and Louis, we gonna run to the party and dance to the rhythm. It gets harder. Summertime. So bad, but she treats me like shit. I'm locked down like the penitentiary. She spreads her loving all over, and when she gets home, there's no left for me. Summertime, and the living's easy. Rallies on the microphone with Ross MG. All the people in the dance will agree that we're well qualified to represent the LBC. Me and Louis, we gonna run to the
Good evening. Sorry, I had my mic muted. Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about women aren't broken. And what's really missing there. You know, because the current, what is it, like the current atmosphere is really criticizing women quite a bit. And they're just kind of labeling girls as being totally broken. And the thing is like, how can you expect someone to kind of get in line when there's no one really to get in line to? And this is gravely important to understand. Gravely important to understand. Because if your character is such that there's really nothing to look up to, nothing for her to admire, then you've got a problem on your hands. Absolutely. You know, but guys they'll make it they'll make it about her. They'll say, you know, she's, and there's something wrong with her because, yeah, I'm fine. It's always I'm fine. It's always the other person, isn't it? And the thing is that we don't really progress until we start realizing that we are our own problem. It falls on your shoulders. If you are suffering in any kind of way, for the most part, it's due to your own choices. Some of it is circumstantial, for sure, but a large portion of it has to do with your choices. And your choices are often dictated by how you view yourself and how you view the world around you. How you view the world around you is largely affected by how you view yourself. And this is where it starts. It's not an easy path. It is absolutely not an easy path. And this is why there are few men and there is hordes of males. And it's the hordes of males who are begging for the attention, begging to be seen, begging to be heard. And this is just not how it goes. You're not going to get what you need through a woman. And until you realize that, you're going to be forever stuck. You're going to be stuck running in the same cycles over and over and over and over again. Actually, if you think that your problem can be solved with something outside of yourself, period, whether it's a woman or a thing or an activity, then you have yet another problem. It's the same shit. You're going to be trying to solve internal problems with external means. And this is what happens when someone gets a bunch of women and they feel unfulfilled. When they get a bunch of money and they feel unfulfilled. They do a bunch of exciting things and they feel unfulfilled. And it's because underneath all that, there is a steady rejection of the self. Uncle Guns, thank you for putting the links in the chat. Yet again, appreciate you. Yeah, follow the links. If you'd like to grab a copy of the Codex of the Sovereign Order, this is available on Amazon. It is a book of wisdom for dominance. It's a book of wisdom for men who wish to bring some inspiration and some insight into their life. And basically, it doesn't read from beginning to end, although it does have a progression. You can literally pick it up, open it to any page, and it will give you some thought-inspiring quote that you can carry with you throughout the day. So, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the perceived broken feminine. The perceived broken feminine. And the thing is that, you know, if you are broken yourself, it's not often that you're going to see beautiful things around you, right? Because you're seeing it through broken eyes. The eyes become broken because your psyche is broken, your soul is broken. So it only makes sense that you look around and you see nothing but things that you can criticize. You know, when you're at peace with yourself, there's really not much to say about the things around you. Because to be at peace with yourself has to do with acceptance. Acceptance for things you can change, things you can't change. But either way, it's acceptance. And this is really where you begin to move away from seeing women as this thing that is broken, thing that should be criticized. And if you go on X, there's just tons of it, tons and tons of young guys, and maybe even middle and old age guys who are just criticizing the shit out of women. And it's sad because I see there's a coach that I know, I'm not going to name any names, and his posts, of course, he's trying to rile up his customer base, right? Who are hurt and angry and criticizing women. And he's always picking on celebrities. He's always criticizing how they look, their bodies and things like that. Talking about, oh my gosh, this woman's gotten so fat. You know, like Pierce Brosnan's wife, you know, she like gained a lot of weight. She had some medical issues, but she also had 2 children with him, but they've been married for a really long time. And I'm thinking to myself, I've seen your girl. She's not trim. She's old. She's got like a slew of children from at least one other man. I think it's other like men, plural. And here you are criticizing celebrities for not looking perfect. It's like, come on. We have to watch our words because it shows where our mind is. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that sort of angle, you know, where guys are looking at women as this broken thing that they must criticize. And this is really an incredibly unhealthy way of going about stuff. Really incredibly unhealthy. Because you cannot become unbitter by being bitter. It just doesn't work that way. You can't get what you want by being sour. You know, sour in your mind, sour in your mouth, sour in your heart. You're not going to get anything by being sour. And I'm not saying being naive about stuff, but don't be sour. There's no reason for it. So let's take a look at what I've got here about the feminine not being broken. And once we go through this, you'll understand that it's not a brokenness. It's more of a shift, and it has a lot to do with men. So, first off, I want to clarify that when it comes to submission, guys must understand that it's nothing to do with being automatic, okay? It's always been conditional, all right? So a girl might have an emotional pull toward submission that is automatic, okay? But to submit, right, there's submission, which is a state, and then there's to submit, which is an action. When the emotions feel safe, she can then choose to do the actions to bring about this state. Does that make sense? And this is where it's a conditional sort of thing, right? Because she has to feel safe in order to progress, in order to make that choice. Okay, we don't want them to make the choice under duress of any kind. This is why domination, leadership, manhood, a woman coming into your sphere always must be a choice. And this is why you must, and in order to give a woman choice, you have to let go of her. Because if you're holding her in any way, that choice is going to be modified. Either through fear of like being harmed by you in some kind of way, psychologically, emotionally, or physically, or restricted in some kind of way. That causes discomfort. It can cause fear. It causes tension in her, and she's not going to feel like she has a free choice. But because of your own fear, because of your own grasping, because of your own hunger, you're not going to be allowing her free will. See, my girl, she can come and go as she pleases. She can leave tomorrow. She can leave right now. And it's okay. Yes. What's up, Efren? So yeah, she can leave right now. And it's not going to make a difference to me. Because my identity is not counting on her. It's not dependent on her. It's almost the other way around. Right? But that's what happens when one thing goes into another. The water is dependent on the pitcher in order to maintain its shape. Yes? The pitcher is not dependent upon the water. But you have to get to that state of not needing. So to really start off with this idea that women are broken, because guys will look at women, I hear about it practically all day long. The modern woman cannot submit. And she can't because she's not given the choice. She can feel the pressure to do so. And so she doesn't feel that free will. It doesn't feel relaxed. And then also there's a lot of that criticism that's saying just like women, the modern woman is just fucked. That they won't submit, they can't submit. And so there's all this harsh criticism. So it even if maybe she even wants to, there's going to be this fear, this half stepping forward. It's going to be ginger. It's not going to be just open. And then the other misconception that a lot of guys have, they think, well, I'm the man, she's the woman, therefore I should be leading and she should be following. And you need to be very careful with shoulds. Shoulds are very dangerous because that comes into prescriptive sort of thinking of what must be. And this is not the way. Historically, women did not submit to men. They submitted to competence and direction. because historically, back when women were basically used as property, as a trading token, like Pokemon cards, in order to advance families, to bring families together and make them stronger by unifying land, unifying riches, unifying lineage, bloodlines, and things of that nature. Even livestock, weapons, networks. The woman was used as this bartering item. Well, it was more of like a selling item rather than bartering, but it was part of this deal, and saying, okay, I'm going to offer my daughter in exchange. We're going to make this relationship happen, and then continue the bloodlines. And so there was this situational thing that happened, where the submission happens due to the conditions of the environment. And so you see guys today who are not competent. They don't have direction. They don't have much passion. And they're the ones who are wishing for things to go backwards in time. And the funny thing is that if we took any of these guys and put them, say, like in the 1500s in Europe, they would probably die. Because a lot of people died back then, because it was harsh conditions. These guys are growing up in a soft life where they have food in the refrigerator, indoor plumbing, electricity, heating, air conditioning, vehicles, food on delivery. They would perish probably within a month. The medical care, you get sick or something, just go get some antibiotics, boom, it's taken care of. You have a broken bone, easily taken care of. That happens back then. You're cooked. Only the strongest survived. And the strongest and the ones who had some kind of resources. So it's just funny to hear these guys saying, like, yeah, I want to turn back the clock when women were property. And they don't realize that they would not do very well, most of them. So sorry about the tangent there, but as far as like submission goes, it's really important to understand that historically it's been about competence. And this is part of the thing that really grabs a woman, part of it. Because there's plenty of guys who are, let's say, like competent in the business world, right? They're a business owner, they're a lawyer, they're a doctor, they're a trader, and that is very good. It's great to have some sort of competency that can be viewed, observed, measured, and saying, wow, this guy's something. He can do something in the world. And that's great, but it's really not the thing that truly captures her. It's a nice thing to have, right? But I think guys are learning. They're really learning. They're saying, well, there's very competent guys and they're failing with women. There's very good-looking guys that are failing with women. So what do we do? And it's not anything to do with that. The whole 666 thing is done. It doesn't really matter anymore. And I think a lot of guys realize that because they're seeing their heroes, rich guys, very good-looking guys, get totally blown out. There's that, what's his name? Geez, that kid who was hitting his face with a hammer. Clavicular, right? Famous YouTuber, good-looking kid, and he has no idea how to talk to women because he's lacking a very essential trait. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So going back to about like direction and competence. Direction, what this does, and this is part of that trait that we'll talk about. Direction reduces uncertainty. It reduces uncertainty, chaos, and internal vigilance. So a woman, because of their nature, right? They have a very vigilant. Oh, good, very good. Good to have you here, kitten. Yeah, let me know how it was. I made a new hypnosis track for my sub. It's fun. I love making these hypno tracks, and to just get into certain states, bring about certain links between words and stimuli, the whole Pavlovian thing. It's a lot of fun, and to bring about, it goes to the point that I was just making about the overthinking and the vigilance. That's part of a very active mind. Part of that active mind within women has to do with the it has to do with the makeup of their mind, but it also contributes to their incredible imaginations that can transport them to different realms, different states of mind, different emotional states and sexual states. They have a very, very unique mind. And so you learn to play around with it and experiment with it, without causing harm. A lot of interesting things can happen. So this is what a lot of my guys are doing with their girlfriends and wives. Trusting themselves. So going back to direction is what reduces uncertainty, chaos, and internal vigilance. And it's that constant awareness of one's own mind. So there's the thinking about the things, and then there's the thinking about having the awareness of one's thinking. And this can get overwhelming for women because it's almost like they have difficulty putting a stop to these things. So if she comes across a man who reduces this, now this can be disrupted in a number of ways. There are guys who can use dark triad traits to put a disruption to these thoughts, but it's not just disrupting them and breaking the pattern, because the dark triad traits, they just create a new pattern of uncertainty. And surely it can be quite addicting when there's this volatile person in their lives who also sexually stimulates them, provides a lot of uncertainty and a large dose of fear. This can be quite addicting, but it's not sustainable. And that's the problem. It's fine to understand these things. It's fine to use these things from time to time, just because you can. But to have your program operating off of these things is not sustainable. But you should be able to utilize them from time to time whenever you want to. And so is that person who can calm that part of their mind. And this is where the hypnosis comes into play, right? Because say, like, for instance, if it's a hypnosis track that's trying to get into her mind that whenever she sucks my dick, her brain shuts off, that her thoughts just gone, poof, as if they don't exist. Even so much to the point where the self that's having the thoughts is now become much thinner. The awareness of the self, where the person, when they're triggered, right, when the anchor is triggered, the identity is more so just about being immersed in the action itself. Like they are the action, they are the sucking. And this is tremendous. This is tremendous for someone who has an overthinking mind, carries with them anxiety, carries with them like a hypervigilance of their own thoughts, chaos, uncertainty with themselves, second guessing their choices, being uncertain about the world that they're in or their immediate environment. But they come across a guy who reduces the uncertainty. It's incredibly powerful, because this is what allows all those things to settle. It allows these things to settle, and she can become more feminine. She's less guarded. She becomes less structured. The armor pieces start falling off and clanking to the ground. And then that feeling becomes addicting. And then once the armor is off, now every now and then, you can take out the proverbial knife and let her feel the tip on her skin. In whatever way, whether that's literally or figuratively, in some sort of psychological way, some sort of emotional way, to create that pattern interrupt. But it's happening within the containment. So you're not really abandoning her, but it feels so real, or you're not really causing her to feel fear, but it feels so rich, or it feels so intense that there's this like, it's almost like, wait a second, this doesn't feel like a role play. This doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel like he's playing around. So then that gives rise of like, oh, he could really do this. He could really, torture me psychologically or emotionally or physically. He could do away with me at a moment's notice. He could do all sorts of things wherever the imagination goes. And this brings about like what's in my ticker with the fear and the respect. But this is all rolled into the same dough with the dropping of that uncertainty and the chaos, the hypervigilance, the armor pieces falling off. It's all wrapped up together. And this brings about, with the consistency of these things, it brings about devotion, especially if you give a structure in which she can devote to you. Where you say, look, I expect this, I want this is what makes me happy, this is this. And when she does these things, you then positively reinforce them. So you allow her to feel good for doing the things that are on the program, that are part of the system. So now she's positively reinforced and thinking, wow, I like, not consciously, but subconsciously or unconsciously, she's thinking, this feels good. It feels good to listen. It feels good to obey. It feels good to be vulnerable. It feels good to be open. It feels good to not think. It feels good to just be. And that's it. And just allowing him to direct me, to move me. Either in person, her physical body, her mind, her emotions, her perspectives, beliefs. And it all comes about through being open, which starts with the safety. So when that leadership is present, the feminine relaxes into responsiveness. If she's not responsive to you, she's either not sexually attracted to you, or you're behaving in a way that does not give rise to her letting down armor, letting down her armor pieces. Okay? Because a suit of armor, like medieval armor, it's in multiple pieces. It takes a while because, they're not just wearing the plate armor over their regular clothes. They've got like layers. There's like padding. There's like an undersuit. There's like all this shit for those guys that wore those full suits of armor. I think I read in the Museum of Natural History here in New York, there's a no, is it the Natural History? No, it's the Met. Sorry, it's the Met, the Metropolitan Museum. And there's a arms and armory section. I love that area. And there's a helmet in there. And I think the helmets alone weighed something like 30 pounds. Just 30 pounds of steel sitting on your head. That's crazy. So, but they were much stockier back then. Just like stocky builds. They were not lanky. But at least the knights weren't. A lot of these suits were very small. But anyways, there's layers to it. So you might get through the plate armor, but there might be chainmail underneath. There might be padding. Then there's like their undergarments all the way down to the skin. And with each layer, there is a certain level of trust involved. And to have her become naked, having her disrobe and become naked in front of you without you being her equal, where you are not exposed, but she is, that requires a high level of trust. And trust and believe that level of exposure is going to arouse her on so many different levels. It's not just going to be like sexually, although that will happen. It's arousal on like a psychological level, but it's this weird mixture of like bitter and sweet, because it's like I'm seen, but it's also like wanting to hide because I'm seen. It's a weird thing. It's both at the same time. And something really magical happens when the woman knows that you can see her. Like you can see her and see through her. And if you wanted to, you could easily just drag a blade through it, like going through a ghost. No problem. But you don't. But this sensation of just being seen, it produces a strong feeling of being exposed. And if you're exposed and not killed, it's a profound sensation. But by someone who you know could destroy you. They could destroy you psychologically or physically, but they're not. But they've just encouraged you to, inspired you to expose yourself and not hide anymore. So it's liberating at the same time. I had a teacher like that. Actually, both of my influential teachers were like this. You know, one was my shifu, and it was different with him because he was very jokey. He had a kind heart, and he would tease and poke. And then the other one, he was a little bit more sadistic, and he wouldn't tease and poke. I don't know. He wouldn't exactly like punch you in the ego, but he'd flick it really fucking hard. Just right on the tip of the nose of your ego. Twang. You know, but he never like made you feel threatened. And it was different because he was incredibly threatening. Like this other teacher of mine, he was basically training for World War III. Like his school was basically a bunker. His students might as well have been a militia. They were ready, or they were getting ready. But it's that exposure thing. It's that thing about exposure that really penetrates a woman. Like you don't realize like that's probably one of the deepest penetrations you can do. It's not with your dick, although that can be quite profound. It's these other things. It's the intangible penetration. And you think, oh man, you can't do that with these modern women. Of course you can. They're, like I said, they're not broken. It's just a misalignment. And you know what aligns them? What's aligning for them is someone who can see through them, and not in a critical manner, not with bitterness or resentment, but just neutrality. And that even is disarming. It's disarming in the way that fogging is disarming. And fogging is that argumentation technique where someone's like coming up at you angry. Let's say you were late to work, and your boss is like, damn it, Johnson, you were late to work 20 minutes today. We had this important thing to start and we had to wait around, and now everything's set back because of you. The fogging technique is to admit to the truth that was spoken, and a lot of times acknowledge the other person's state of being. So you say, yeah, you know what? You're right. I was late today, and I can see that's really frustrated you. That is being seen in a way. Because what most people do is they expect, their nervous system expects the other person to push against it, to defend themselves. Like after this verbal attack, a lot of times people will brace themselves and go, like, what are you talking about? I wasn't fucking late. Or they give excuses. Oh, my car broke down. Or there was a lot of traffic on 87. Or, like I couldn't get my kids out the door to school or whatever. You know what I mean? And they don't take ownership. There's just that part where there's just that defensing, right? But when you fog, it completely disrupts these things. It shakes things up. It's a pattern interrupt. And then they might say something again. If it's true, you agree with it. You're right. Yes, you're right. This will set back that project. And you just keep agreeing. If it's true, agree. And you watch their anger just start drifting away. And next thing you know, they might start inquiring about you. Like, was there something wrong? Like, what's going on? Was there a reason at home that you were late? That's happened. And so this is the sort of disarming that I'm talking about. It's very similar to that, where it's neutral. It's not like being disarmed through force, by breaking someone's psyche, by breaking their logic, by strong arming them into a position to abide by your will. It's not that at all. It's a disarming through neutrality. You're not this way or that. And just in the same sense, when the person's upset and they're expecting a certain thing, but you give something else that's completely unexpected, that's how it is with the woman when you are neutral, because it's completely unexpected. The neutrality. And this is what's disarming. So it's a layer, it's an added layer of disarming. So because a lot of guys are not operating this way, they don't know how, they have no sense of presence, they don't have the aura for it. And this is really what is the tool that's lacking. Remember I said there was this other thing? It's not money, it's not your looks. Those things are nice. What's missing is your aura, your presence, right? The kids call it aura. It's nothing new. It's just presence. Your presence will make that shift. But you can't have presence when you have self-doubt, when you have self-fear, self-rejection, self-judgment, self-criticism, a lack of confidence, no direction, no competence. How do you expect a woman to behave around you? So when leadership disappears, the feminine compensates, because that is the nature of the universe. The nature of the universe is built on balance. This is how things work. It's entirely built on balance. And is it 31 pounds? No, I'm probably just joking around. But, whoops. So the lack of leadership, what occurs is the feminine compensating for these things. It's just how things work. This is where the armor appears from. It's not like the woman's born with armor, with all those layers that I was talking about. She's not born with this stuff. Not at all. It's developed. It's forged, right? Armor must be created. We're not like armadillos. We're not like turtles. We're not like reptiles, where it's just part of our biology or part of our psychology. We develop these things as a defense mechanism, as a means of survival, emotional survival. And this is where things get problematic, because the longer we do something, the longer we think something or say something or feel something, the easier it becomes normal, and it becomes normalized. So think about say like the kid who, he's born and raised in Afghanistan, in the area where there's like a lot of combat. That's his reality. He's around that tension and all those variables happening. That's his normal. And there's going to have to be psychological and physical developments to compensate for that environment. That's all he knows. And if he keeps it with him for his lifetime, then the psyche is just going to adapt and like calcify in that way. And the same thing can happen to men in certain environments, and it happens to women in certain environments. But since we're talking about women here, I'll just mention them. If they're put into a situation, a mentality, an environment that encourages them to wear armor because it's necessary, and that time just goes on, the next day it's necessary, the day after that it's necessary, and the day after that, and so on and so on, birthday after birthday after birthday. Now they've been wearing armor for 15 years. Psychological armor. It starts to graft to the skin. It doesn't mean that it's part of the skin. It doesn't become the skin. It becomes grafted to it. I can't remember, there was this movie. Was it like The Man in the Iron Mask? Was that DiCaprio? And there's that story of the guy who, I don't know, it was an interesting story where he was like the actual father of a child, and if it was known that it would fuck up some kingdom or whatever, I can't remember, but he was forced to wear this iron mask. And it was for so long that his skin, was touching it, that it just kind of like stuck to it, like grafted almost. And there was a time when he was released, he was discovered, and the mask was taken off, and it pulled the skin with him, or like with the mask as it was being taken off. Totally gross. And it can be a painful process. And I've experienced this. And a lot of times that pain of removing the armor, even if not done forcibly, can be too much for her. And she's not going to want to take it off. Because the fear of taking it off and the process of taking it off is too painful. Despite you being a great guy, it doesn't matter. This happened to me. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. But she wasn't broken. She had adapted to survive. But it was too long. I didn't meet her early enough. Or she didn't meet a man that could help her remove that armor early enough. And it is what it is. But I need to reiterate, she was not broken. She was just adapted to a certain circumstance for too long. And that's how it goes. She didn't have an environment, because it's not about work. It's not about her being out in the working world and engaging with men and doing difficult things and processes and stress. Of course, like, those things aren't great, but that stuff's not great for any human. It's the fact that she didn't have, for very long, she didn't have someone where when she came home, she was able to remove all of that armor. And I mean all of it. Not just her helmet going on the nightstand, And I was thinking, well, her helmet comes off. Let me see if I can help her take the other bits off. And some skin was coming off with it. And I saw that, and I was like, okay, I can't do this. It's going to take many, many years and I don't have a lot of time. You know, I'm in the middle of my life, and so I really don't have time. I don't want to spend the next 10 years helping you take off your armor. You know, especially when I'm not seeing the conviction, right? Remember my criteria. One of the 5 criteria is enthusiasm. Being enthusiastic about whatever's going on in your life. And I didn't see that enthusiasm to push forward, to really work, because it's tough. It does not feel good. It doesn't feel good at all. None of this training feels good. It doesn't feel good to become a man, and it doesn't feel good to become a woman. It's tough because our minds get put in positions for a long time, and that position, although it might be twisted into a pretzel, you become used to it. And to untangle, just, it hurts a little bit. You know, kind of like if you've been sitting for a long time and you get your feet crossed, your legs are outstretched on like an ottoman or something like that, and it's been there for too long, and you realize, I got to get up and use the bathroom, and you move your legs, and where your legs were pressing together, it aches, it hurts. I mean, unless you're like a kid, you don't feel that shit. But you know, at my age, I feel that. You know, the pressure of my legs pressing on each other, the shin bone. And you don't notice it while it's there, but the second you try moving it, it really fucking hurts. Or if, let's say you have like nipple clamps or those wooden clothespins, you know, you pull out that nipple and you get that on there, get the clamp on there. It's, it does like hurt a little bit when it goes on at first, but then the body adapts because it starts flooding her system with adrenaline. And so the pain subsides. And then you do other things. Her mind goes this way, her mind goes that way, emotions, this, that, arousal. And then you're like, okay, it's been a half an hour. I'm going to remove those clamps. Because if you do use clamps, say like on nipples, you cannot keep them on indefinitely. You can cause like nerve damage and so on. You don't want to do that. So when you take them off, you have to take them off slowly because the nerves like wake up. And taking them off can feel more intense than when you put them on in the first place, because you're just, you know, that removal. I don't know what's actually happening there physiologically, but it hurts more taking them off a lot of times. So like I said, right, this hardening is adaptive. It's not pathological. It does not mean women are fucked up. They're not. They're just surviving. And men are surviving, but just in a different way. They're softening rather than hardening, which is interesting. So modern men often they ask for submission without offering leadership. So do you see, if there's that hardening, that adaptive hardening, and then you're asking her to submit, she literally can't, because of the training, because of the conditioning, the adaptation that she's done long before she even met you. And so for you to ask her to do this thing, even maybe if she wants to, like what was the case in my scenario, it still can't happen. But a lot of times the girls will hear that and go, are you kidding? Who the hell do you think you are? Asking me to submit, or even telling me to. That's the crazy part. I hear guys do this all the time. You know, some girl, you know, it'll be like a live YouTube or whatever. She's talking about topics like this. And there'll be guys in the chat yelling, like in all caps, submit. It's like, what, to you? Or you're just saying this as like general advice? Forceful advice. So So because, the modern man has softened, he doesn't have the leadership, he doesn't have the direction, he doesn't have competence, he doesn't have vision, he doesn't have consistency, and he certainly is lacking in the area of emotional regulation. Right? A lot of times they're deregulated. They're unraveled a bit. And this is problematic, because to have men in an environment that they have like dysregulated emotions and psychological states, this does not bode well for society, because you have men, we have more dense muscles, we have denser skeletons, we're generally bigger than women. And now to what? Destabilize our minds from being just simple, straightforward, stoic, focused, convicted on the things that we've chosen. That's gone. So it's like having this barbarian who used to have purpose, used to follow a path and had a reason for following it. And now that same barbarian is just on the loose. It's a loose cannon. Thank goodness guys aren't like crazy and upset. They're just checked out. They're like, fuck it. I'm going to just sit inside, eat junk food, play video games, and jerk off to porn. And that's just what they're going to do. That's the unfortunate, but I guess it's worse. Or I'm sorry, it's better than the alternative, which I think is coming. I think that's absolutely coming. I think that their tension is going to rise when they realize, well, they do realize, but when it's gone on long enough that they aren't being chosen, that they're being looked over, and they keep putting certain types of rhetoric in their minds, combined with the underlying foundation of self-rejection, they won't be able to take it out on women, and they're not going to be able to take it out on the men that the women are choosing. They'll just take it out on each other. And this is going, I believe that this is something that's going to arise. It's not going to be a pretty time in our history. So those characteristics that I was talking about, right? Like having direction, competence, vision, consistency, emotional regulation. You have, without these things, you have a series of various fallouts, right? So like without consistency, trust can't form. Like if I gave you a chair that randomly just collapsed whenever you sat in it, sometimes it stayed up, sometimes your ass was on the floor, you wouldn't trust the chair. After a while, you'd be like, I don't know, I think I'm just not gonna, I'll just stand. Like that's likely going to happen. So in order for trust to even begin, there needs to be consistency. Without trust, then submission feels unsafe. So to get to submission, you have to start with consistency. Consistency is the way anything develops. Anything in nature, anything man-made. It requires consistency. And so unsafe submission becomes self-betrayal rather than devotion. Because if she's submitted and she doesn't feel safe, that means she has betrayed her better judgment. She's betrayed her nervous system saying, this doesn't feel right. She's betrayed her emotions. She's betrayed her friends, her family. She's betrayed all these systems around her, both internally and externally, that are there to kind of protect her. And she's made decisions otherwise, despite them. Or maybe she was coerced, or maybe she was forced. But either way, that turns into unsafe submission. And it's self-betrayal, but it's also a type of submission that I've mentioned before, where it's just being obedient. And if you go back, if you want to learn more about the different stages, where like obedient is just, it's like a fearful level of stage one, where you're just kind of going through the motions, or maybe a fearful version of stage two. Excuse me. So when you have her in a position of just being obedient, it's not real submission. And the guy who's inexperienced, who doesn't know anything about women, who's just stuck in his ego, he will think that she's broken. He'll think that there's something wrong with her, that she's not really submitting. He can tell that she's just going through the motions. He can feel it. Like his instinct can feel it. And he might be able to fool himself for a little while and say, well, at least we're fucking. At least I'm fucking her. But he knows it in his gut that he really doesn't have her. She has not given herself to him. And it's a very real, very distinct difference between these things. And you can feel it. It's almost palpable when a woman has given you her being, given you her presence. And it's not like a possession. It's almost like she's bringing her presence into your presence. So like if yours is like a field of some sort, she's bringing her presence within your presence. So it appears like ownership, it feels like ownership, but it's not really ownership, because she's not like just giving it over to you, because she's there with it. You know, it's not like a thing she has. It is her. So she is then coming into your field as an offering. And it shows up vastly different than obedience. And I was talking to some guys today about that. And, these guys were just like, hey, listen, I don't care as long as the job gets done. I don't care how she feels. If I'm her husband, I just need the obedient wife. And I could see the reasoning of that, where you're just saying, listen, I'm trying to create a legacy. I'm trying to create my own little world, my own little kingdom here. I don't have time to sit down and concern myself with her feelings. That's fair. Not everyone is cut out for that. No, not everyone cares. That's fair. I can see the angle. But don't complain. Don't complain what you get. Right? We all have to sleep in the beds that we make. So, he shouldn't complain when he gets just obedience and not surrendered, not a surrendered woman, because they feel entirely different. The difference is a woman who will give you sex whenever you want, but you can read her energy. You can read her face, the micro expressions, the look in her eyes, the vibe that's coming off of her, right? Her aura is detached. It's neutral. She's doing it because she knows she has to. And maybe there's not like a reluctance for it, where she's like disgusted and not wanting to do it. She's just there, like blah, meh, like that kind of neutral. It's not negative, like get me the fuck out of here. It's just neutral. And that's the cost. And there's a big difference between that and a woman who surrenders her body, who surrenders her arousal to you. That the look on her face, the look in her eyes, the sex that she engages in is completely different. But the difference is micro. You have to be present to see it. And it's something you can feel. You can feel it on you. Almost like walking through heavy fog. Like you can feel it, but you can't feel it. It's not like a tree branch hitting your arm. So it's fine if you just want those, if you just want someone to follow like an instruction manual. Perfectly fine, but just don't complain about what you get. And also for those who have had surrendered and completely submitted women in their lives, don't complain about that either. Because what you're shouldered with is more responsibility. You're not just responsible for the external structures and the law, right? You don't have to just only manage that. You now have her nondescript, ever-changing internal world to manage. Now, not completely, okay, because we are dealing with a full-grown adult. She's not 4. But she is a woman, and there is an internal world that's ever-changing. It's volatile. It's fluid. It's sometimes chaotic. It's sometimes unpredictable. And yes, you're going to have to put a certain amount of awareness and care. And not care in terms of like, oh, it's still gonna be better, baby. Like, no, I just mean care in terms of like being attentive, being engaged with it. In the same way, like you care for a garden, you tend to a garden. In order to keep things beautiful and productive, you can't just like let it be, because chaos will reign. Bugs will come in, weeds will grow, parasites, mold, whatever, like you have to maintain that shit. And it's the nature of the woman's mind it's similar. When she surrenders it into you, then you have that responsibility. I mean, if you want something that's productive and upward moving, inward moving, and reliable, something that's beautiful and consistent. So if that happens, if that's one of your choices, don't complain about that choice as well. That's the bed that you have to sleep in, so you don't get many off days. But this is why the surrendered woman, part of the reason why, is that when she's in that state, she wants to serve you. Because I think on some level she can sense that you have this awareness, like this constant awareness. You're not sleeping, like ever. I don't mean literal sleeping, but you're not sleeping on the job as being her man. Maybe the only time is if like you go off to do something. And even then, it's like my mind's not completely unaware. So is that awareness. And this is why I think partially there is that desire to serve, where they can say, let me rub his feet. Let me fix him a bath. Let me make him some tea. Let me make him some food. Let me rub his shoulders. Let me just tell him a story, sing him a song, whatever. Something. So going back to the unsafe submission, the betrayal, okay, because this is important. Because I could go on and on about that, the good stuff, but I'm not going to, because it's not the average situation. It's not the average experience amongst males. What they do experience is the resentment. So when there's the self-betrayal that happens within the woman, when she knows she's not doing herself right, she knows. Like her higher self is like, girl, you're fucking it up. This isn't the way. Then there's resentment. There's resentment within herself. And this changes behaviors, right? Because remember at the beginning, I said about how these things can alter the words you use, the choices you make, the habits you form. Your internal world dictates a lot of this. So if you've got feelings of self-betrayal, self-resentment for being in these positions that have to do with hardened adaptation due to environments that include not having grounded, directed, competent, trustful men around them. It's going to form into a certain behavior. It's going to adapt into a certain behavior, mixing in that self-resentment, mixing in the self-betrayal. And that resentment, guess what? It gets transferred onto guys. And then the guys are going, what the fuck? Look at this crazy bitch. Look at this crazy bitch who needs to see a therapist for at least 10 years. She needs to get on SSRIs. And in reality, what it is just a response to relational instability. That's all it is. What's up, Lou? The inexperienced guy who expects both obedience and submission from the woman usually gets her body, but not her mind, right? No, he typically doesn't get either. Unless he's cute. Unless he's like a good-looking guy, he's charming or whatever. A lot of those guys, like experienced or inexperienced, they'll just get her body. And they'll think that it's submission, but it's really not. It's really not. But it's a double whammy if the guy has no experience and he's expecting submission. That's not a good combo. So like I said, all this is, it's not broken femininity. It's not broken women. It's a response to instability. And I know I'm biased about this, but I think it's men's faults. It's not raising your sons right. It starts there. It starts not raising your sons right and allowing the internet and social media to raise your son, or to be raised by a woman who just can't cultivate that masculine framing. She just can't do it. It's not within her. Maybe if she's aware, she can kind of get the ideas in his mind from a conceptual level. But that's not common, for one. And two, it doesn't stop at conceptualization. It has to be embodied. And embodiment starts with replication, by seeing it, by hearing it, and by feeling it. Being in the presence of a man when you're a child and he's talking and behaving at you in a certain way as a boy, it penetrates you because he's embodied this. And then you start feeling it starts seeping into you, like, the subconscious starts saying, oh, okay, I'm getting this. A mother, as wonderful as her efforts and intentions are, cannot teach this because she cannot truly embody this. It's just not possible. And that's okay, because that's just nature. It's just the way things are. And so it starts with dads, unfortunately. But it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? There's a lot of guys, and this is part of the reason why I do the work that I do, is because there are good guys. They have like somewhat of a grounding, and they didn't grow up with a dad, but they need to understand and feel certain things that they didn't learn. So it can be developed. It's not like a lost cause, but it becomes a lost cause when the guy doesn't develop enough self-awareness to say, hey, watching videos of this guy over here really isn't going to cut it. It's really not going to change me fundamentally. I need a guide. I need some sort of influence and checkup and accountability in my life. And this is what really starts to form that. Because that's the sort of the shit that the dad would teach, either directly or indirectly. The mentor kind of takes that place. So it's not like all is lost. Just like if you're listening, you're like, well, fuck, I didn't have a dad. I'm 22 years old and no, I guess that means I'm fucked. No, it doesn't. You're fucked if you had that situation and you have no self-awareness. Then you're fucked. But if you have self-awareness, then that is what leads you to the position of being aware to the point of realizing that you need to change, that you need to do something. You may not even know what you need to do, but you can feel it. You can feel it in your marrow that there's just something is off and the distractions aren't cutting it anymore. The video games aren't cutting it. The porn is not cutting it. The food is not cutting it. None of it's cutting it. And you realize, shit, there's something that I have to correct here. Something's misaligned. I need to go to like a mental chiropractor. So this is that instability. And there's so many guys like this. So many unstable guys. So are you surprised? Like now after I've explained some of this, are you surprised that women are the way they are? Like especially in America. Are you surprised at all? There's nothing to rely on. So the only thing to do is to adapt and convert oneself into something that resembles the containments that could come from a man. And that's just the harsh reality of it. So women step into masculine roles when men vacate them. And we're not talking about like roles in society or jobs or something like that. It's more of that embodied presence. Men have stepped out of that role, that they've stepped out of that character, that archetype, that embodied presence. And the universe always balances out. The universe always seeks equilibrium. So that happens. The men drain away, or they're draining away, and women are flowing in. That might be like part of the law of conservation of energy, something along those lines. But it's always balance. It's always seeking balance, harmony, always. I think in a past life, I must have been like a Taoist priest or something like that. So they step into masculine roles that men have vacated. And what is called masculine women is often unled women. And it's really that simple. They're just unled. But this isn't like an insult. This is not a criticism. It's just a simple, neutral observation. It's not saying women are fucked up because they're missing men, right? I'm not saying they're fucked up. It's just an adaptation. That's all it is. They've adapted to the environments that they've had to be in. And so, the guys, they're grasping, a lot of them. A lot of the guys are grasping at this situation and wanting authority because they don't feel like they have any power. They don't feel like they've got any leverage. And this is problematic, right? This is what leads to them feeling predatory because they want control, they want authority, but they don't want or know how to take on the responsibility. And this is going to cause even more problems. And I don't know if this is going to grow, but I've seen it. I've heard it plenty of times. So So authority without responsibility feels predatory, and responsibility without authority feels burdensome. So many men, they want feminine softness without the masculine weight. They don't want that responsibility. Like I said, like the more a woman absorbs into your field, right, submits in her presence into your presence, the more that happens, the closer she becomes, the more responsibility you have, because the softer she gets. You know, going back to like the liquid in the pitcher, like imagine this liquid on one end of its state is like just 100% water, flows, splashes, pours, whatever. But then on the other end of its ability to change state is like a thick, or let's say it's like hard, like ice. And then between, it's not melted, but it's like a gelatinous thing, right? It's a very dense gelatinous thing, and it becomes less and less dense going down the spectrum. Okay. When it's ice, it's not really dependent upon the pitcher, right? You can turn it over, clunk, it comes out, and it holds its form just by itself. It doesn't even need the pitcher. It's fine, right? It can be upright, it's solid, it's rigid, and shoot, at this state, even more dense than the glass pitcher it was in. But as that, you know, that substance, because I don't think there is a substance like this that exists, but the substance that goes from something akin to ice, then to, you know, softening stages of some sort of gelatinous material to becoming completely free liquid, the importance of that pitcher grows. Its presence becomes much more important the softer the thing gets. And so guys out here, they don't realize that. They're like, I just want the good stuff. I just want her to be open and free with me, and then I can do whatever I want. I get that. Like, yeah, it's great. But the funny thing is that, I don't know. And I think my clients are waking up to this as well. Well, a couple of them are anyways. There's enjoyment in the responsibility, because I can turn that into eroticism as well. It's so when you accept everything, you're not resisting, you're not pushing back, you're not becoming rigid, right? Your program is rigid, but you don't have to be rigid. Your spirit doesn't have to be rigid. The responsibilities become just part of that thing. It becomes imbued into, and that's part of your expression. It's not just like, oh, this is this thing that I have to do. I have to be responsible for this person's mental states and physical states, sexual states, emotional states. It's such a burden. It's not, right? Because things that are perceived as burden or anxiety, remember I was talking about anxiety. What is anxiety? It's often when we resist what is. I don't want this to be like that. It's pissing me off that it's not what I want it to be. And depending on the circumstances, that tension between what it is and what you want it to be can become very, very great, or little, or somewhere in between. It depends on the context. But it can get so intense that it can cause physiological responses. Sometimes anxiety is so great, someone will have a stroke or a heart attack or something like that. Or they'll faint. And so the responsibility is similar to that, in the sense that if you just accept it, there's no push-pull, there's no resistance, criticism, judgment, or whatever. You just accept it as this is part of a larger mechanism. Then the anxiety goes away, because you're not wishing for it to be something different. It just is. you'll realize, and my guys, a couple of my guys are going through this, the ones that I'm mentioning that are doing these stages of things, they're realizing that acceptance, it goes a long way. Because not only, and you think like, oh, well, if I accept something, that means that I'm stuck with it. Not true. When you accept something, when you just allow it to be, whatever it is, this is actually the power that allows you to let go. Because if you're constantly in a state of resistance, you can't ever let go of something. You have to bring it into your palm in order for you to open your palm, right? But if you're always like stiff arming something, you're like, no, that's not true. I don't believe that. That makes me feel bad. That hurts my ego. I'm afraid of that. I'm judging that. I'm criticizing that. Then that resistance to the thing keeps it there. Versus just relaxing on all that bullshit, accepting what is. And then this is what actually allows you to let go. But every time you resist, you strengthen the thing you're actually resisting. Because what you push against pushes back. I think that's physics, right? I think like when you're pushing your hand firmly against the wall, like the atoms in the wall are actually pushing back at you or something like that. Can't remember. But I'm no physicist, so don't quote me on that shit. So that masculine weight that a lot of men are veering away from, it includes accountability. Not just for you, but for everybody. Like you have to hold yourself accountable and you're holding her accountable. That responsibility includes structure. And this is what allows accountability to work and consequence. So you have to be monitoring your own behavior. Don't turn into a do as I say, not as I do. Okay? So if you fuck up, there's consequences for these things and you have to accept them. Because no good leader is too good for punishment or for owning up for their shit. All right? I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but I own them. I don't pretend that they didn't happen. That's not what a man does. Like I said, the path of manhood is laid in bricks of honesty. So, so it includes all those things. All right. So when you have that, the accountability, the structure, the consequence, words, they express desire. Okay. And the behavior demonstrates the worthiness. And so how this relates to what I just described about the men is that the submission is experiential, right? It's not an ideology. So when you are the one holding the structure, holding the accountability, holding the awareness, holding the leadership, this is what allows her to experience the submission. It's not just a concept. It's not just an ideology or something that she knows of as a way of life. She feels it. It's an emotional presence within her. And so in order for that to come out, what women do is they track patterns, right? Because just, I guess like the evolution of our being, they don't have the brawn. So they had to become very aware of like little things all around them, like a rabbit. The rabbit's here. The rabbit's been part of our ecosystem for a long time. And it's because it's super vigilant about stuff, looking for patterns, looking for movement. And so they track patterns of behavior, patterns of your presence, of your aura, right? And they're not tracking your promises. They'll listen to them and sometimes compare them to your patterns. But it's the pattern that matters because it's the pattern that drives the emotional states, the pattern of your behavior. So what you don't want is for your leadership to be untrustworthy, because what'll happen is she will start outsourcing her decision making. And when she starts outsourcing her decision making, part of that goes, or part of going with that is her trust. So this starts eroding her confidence in your leadership. And you would say, someone who's not paying attention, they would say, well, it's her fault for outsourcing. Well, the outsourcing is a result, it's a reaction, it's a response to the man when he is not showing his competence. He's not showing his reliability. He's not showing his emotional stillness. This all gets outsourced. So what happens is when things are volatile within the man, she then becomes vigilant. That hypervigilance within herself starts becoming vigilant to the man in her life. And she starts looking at all the little behaviors. This can turn into resentment, distrust, and certainly it will destroy erotic polarity. Because if she's busy watching, she's not in her body. So there's a trust violation. So she can't be in her body, and this erodes the erotic polarity. And so, but when it is there, the feminine relaxes when someone else is holding the structure. It brings this about, right? Because if you don't have that, and the trust is the lack of trust is there, the lack of direction, the lack of aura, the lack of your presence that she can come into, then polarity dies. There's nothing to keep it alive. And this is a lot of times when people say, well, the spark is gone. This is one of the reasons why the spark dies, because there's no polarity. I mean, literally, like, for sparks to happen, you need polarity. Like literal sparks. Well, speaking of sparks, so I have a one of those like electrical dog trainers, right? The little shock things, and it's a collar that has this like little box with these two like metal nipples kind of sticking off on the inside. So it goes around the dog's neck, and then those prods that kind of just like press on its neck. And it's made for like training your dog to like do certain things. Like maybe your dog is like really like runs away, or let's say it's easily triggered into violence. So this is one of those things that you can use to train your dog. But I thought I needed it, but I never ever got around to using it. And so today I was just checking it out, and I was like, I charged it, and I said, what's going on with this? And there's like this special setting on it that I didn't know I set. And it's like a max setting. So basically, like it's like this mode that when you tap one of the buttons, it automatically goes to the level that you had it set at for like the boost. They call it like the boost mode. So the boost mode, I had it turned all the way up. And I'm sitting there and I'm holding the collar. I'm holding like the module in my hand, and the two prongs are like touching my palm. And I pressed that button, and not realizing that it was on the boost setting. And my arm like shot out straight. It was like somebody like hit me in the back of the arm with like a small baseball bat. And my arm just like shot out straight, and the device like flew out of my hand. And I was like, holy shit, that it's electricity, if you've ever been shocked by electricity, it's really, really interesting because surely if it's got enough um, voltage, I think it's voltage, it can burn, right? It can burn skin, right? But that's not the real thing about it. It causes muscular contraction, like severe muscular contraction. And that's the thing that is but it happens so fucking fast that, um, it's shocking, pardon the pun. But yeah, it's very surprising. It's very surprising when electricity jolts you, because it doesn't creep on. I mean, with this thing, you can kind of hold the button down and then turn the knob and slowly bring up the electrical charge. But it was like immediate top level 100%. I shocked the fuck out of my hand. And it doesn't hurt. Like the second it stops, the pain goes away, you know. And I wouldn't even characterize it as pain. It's a weird sensation. It really is. And I guess that's why they make electro sex toys, like the Violent Wand. Um, but I would just be so afraid of those things breaking because they're made of glass. Excuse me. Um, so anyways, that was fun. I'm gonna use it with my sub. I'm gonna like strap it around her thigh or something like that. And make her walk funny. Just in her, she's like walking all weird for a second. Um, I watched this video. It's really funny video. It's this couple, and you can tell they love each other, and they prank each other and stuff like that. So the guy was like, "Hey, I've got this, electro shock dog collar. Let's try it out." So she was wearing it on her neck, and and they were at a drive-through, and like the second that she was driving, and so like the second the person like like Burger King or whatever like hands her the drinks, he hits it. She does this jolt and like squirts the she like compresses the cups, and the soda goes all over the place. He does it again with the food. But the great part about it is that she was laughing the entire time. Like she was cracking up. But I like seeing those displays of love, right? It's a good time. Also like the guy who has his girlfriend or wife, she has that thing where if she hears or sees someone about to throw up or throwing up, it causes them to retch, right? Like dry heave. They're like, ugh, right? Like if they even hear that noise, ugh, like it causes them to retch, right? And so he conditioned her to do that response with other stimuli. So he has like these tubes with like a little slider inside it, and you turn it upside down, it makes this weird like sort of sound. And he made like big ones and small ones, and he's just recording her, and he's like, "Hey babe, did you hear about the thing today?" And she's like, "What thing?" And he goes, and she like makes that sound, like the gagging retching sound, and it's just really funny. And then he conditioned her to do the same thing with being shocked. So he has like the same electro probe that I've got, and it would shock her like on the leg, and she would have that reaction. There's like this like little tennis racket looking thing that's electrified to kind of kill flying bugs in the air. And so that too, she'd be like standing there washing the dishes, and he'd like come up and like pat her butt with the electro paddle or whatever, and like instantly she would make that retching noise. So yeah, that stuff, that's just transference. So you can absolutely transfer all that stuff. But anyway, so that but that's part of leadership. Like that's when like that stuff, right? Transferring, say like one stimuli to produce, like one stimuli produces a certain effect, and you transfer the stimuli to produce the same effect. That really occurs very much when you have embodied the leadership. that maybe not necessarily in that way. Okay, maybe not wanting to use Pavlovian mechanics. You don't have to. But the point is that you are able to influence. And that might feel like a burden, but to me, it's exciting. Like just to think that someone has put that much trust in me. Like it's inspiring when someone trusts you that much. Um, but they can't just give it to you, right? It's a reaction. It's a development. So this is um, why feminine resistance increases in the presence of performative authority. And I talked about that with the Dom chart that I had made. This performance authority, performance leadership. They're doing it on the surface, but she can tell, she can like feel it in her that she's like, he's not him. He's not, he's doing it out of force. He's doing it out of fear. He's doing it out of just pure pragmatism. And it just doesn't move her. It doesn't move her emotions. And this doesn't bring about surrender. Performative leadership, it collapses under pressure. It collapses when things get real. And you can always tell. Like this is one of those things that separates men from males, is that when things get tense, how do they react? Do they run away? Do they get angry? Do they get scared? Do they freeze? Do they tighten up? Do they get filled with anxiety? Do they meet it head on? It's like a challenge, like an aggressive challenge. Or do they meet it head on pleasantly? Are they neutral? Like all of these things matter. How you handle pressure and uncertainty is one of the main things that differentiates a man from a male. And this is something she absolutely can feel and observe in real time. And this is why submission emerges when leadership proves consistent over time. Just like that chair. You sit in it a dozen times, it doesn't collapse. Okay, I can start trusting that this chair is not going to collapse. And it most certainly can't be negotiated. Like you could have the cleanest, tightest rhetoric about why a woman should submit or why a particular woman should submit. And she's not going to. She might even be able to agree with you and say, wow, that's a really sound argument as to why I should submit to you. But that's not going to move her emotionally. At best, she could get to level 1 or 2 and just agree. Just agree to do the things that you want her to do. Like an employee. And that might be okay. She might be like, you know what? I can do this. This is as safe as I feel. And he seems to be okay with it. So this is what we're going to do. And this is as far as our relationship goes, as far as depth. Because submission, like real submission, it always involves not just her body, but her emotions and her spirit. And it's an outcome. It's not something that you can request into existence. It's actually not even something she can request into existence. She doesn't have full control. She doesn't have full control of it arising. But once it arises, that's when she has control. It's come up into her like conscious awareness, often tied with emotion. And then she can say, okay, do I want to do this? But the thing is that when it becomes a choice, it becomes even more powerful. Like, you know, like someone who's like choosing to do something dangerous or choosing to do something risky or uncomfortable. It's one thing if like that thing is automatic. It's like, that's just their habit, you know? But to choose to do something that is uncertain or dangerous or maybe not completely understood, that's compelling. That's compelling because despite what it might feel like, I'm doing it anyways. Despite what it might look like, I'm doing it anyways. Despite not knowing exactly what will happen to me, I'm doing it anyways. And so her choosing submission, rather than just kind of having it be some sort of response, her just willfully choosing it, that's even more powerful. And guys will look at it wrong. They'll say, well, if it's a choice, then it's not natural. No, it absolutely is natural. The emotional rising is natural. That part of the submission is natural. But to turn it into something, right? To transmute that raw material into something that can be seen and observed and judged and corrected and shaped, that takes real courage. That's daring. So imagine, I mean, if you can, like what might be required emotionally and psychologically in order for someone to feel that comfortable to, or not even comfortable, but to be inspired to take on that potentially dangerous thing. To say, I'm going to do this. Or with the spirit of fuck it, I'm going in. It's not something to be taken lightly. So men who want submission, they must become submission worthy. And it's not like, I don't like to use that phrase submission worthy because it doesn't quite capture what he must do, because that makes it sound like the submission is above him and he's the one submitting. But it's kind of like, again, like with the garden reference, if you want to grow things, you have to make sure the soil is clean and healthy. Like you have to make it suitable. Let's say that instead of worthy. Men who want submission must become suitable for submission to grow. Your soil has to become rich, mineral rich and healthy in order for her to come in, plant seeds and grow. So that suitability, it's built. It's built through action and consistency of action, not assertion. And this is what a lot of guys do. If you look on X, if you look on YouTube channel, comments, this, that, people are asserting themselves. They're asserting of what their view is, what women should do, how they should do it, arguing with each other in the chats. It's built through not so much speaking, but doing and showing up emotionally and psychologically in such a way that creates an aura. That aura, right, that the kids talk about, the presence, it's a combination of your behavior, your mindset, and your feelings. And really, it's the cultivation of the thing that she isn't. So basically, like in a nutshell, if you see the absence of submission, typically it points to the absence of leadership. And so today's, modern girl, she's not fucked up. She's misaligned due to survival, due to not having the environment and the men around her to prevent her from needing to put on armor at all. But that's not a sad story. It's not a happy story. We're not here to jerk tears or feel sorry or critical. It just is what it is. It's just a natural development of our existence as humans. But just know that This is the result. They're not broken. It just largely has to do with a lack of presence within men. And that's the way it goes. On a brighter note, I bought a new flogger today. It's so pretty. I got it on Etsy. So as a segue to like kind of change the topic a little bit, I'm gonna just show that off really fast. It's super cool. Hopefully I can upload it. No, I can't. Fuck me. Oh, I know how I can do it. I'll just open it in preview, and then I'll share my screen. But Etsy is like, if you guys are like looking for decent quality, not like high quality, but like good quality, like better than Amazon quality for like anything BDSM related, go to Etsy. Etsy is a fantastic resource for this shit. So there's the flogger. It's like a handmade and stained wooden handle with the straps that are not too wide, but they're also not too thin either. So I'm excited about this arriving. Should be getting here later this month because I think the creator lives in Europe somewhere. So, all right. So I'm going to pull this to a close. I hope that this was informative for you. I hope it was a helpful tool in dispelling some of the out there that's, painting the picture of how things are in the minds of women and what men are going through, because it's really not the truth. It's really not what's happening. We're seeing misalignments. We're seeing shifts in neural patterns, based on all sorts of like social fluctuations. And this has been happening forever. This is just what happens. It's natural. We develop cultures, we develop this, we develop that, and it plays a role. It messes with our mind. But it doesn't break us, right? Because humans are resilient. We adapt. That's what we do. So I'm going to adapt to my couch and make some tea. That's what I'm going to adapt to right now. So thank you for joining me here today on this episode. And like always, if you have any questions, you can email me directly through the website, thedominance.academy.com. There's a contact page and turns right into an email to my inbox. And again, going through the website, big button on the top right of the corner of the website, that's where you can sign up for your free consultation. So let's get this new year started off right. And then while you're on the website, check out the tutorials. They're just single use lessons. Well, not single use, but single subject lessons that cover one particular topic and going in depth. And those are anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes long, depending on the subject. So check all that shit out. Get your year going in the right direction. And and you don't have to remain in the states that you've been in for years. You don't have to be like another year feeling exactly as you have been, having the results that you've always had. Okay. All right. Until next time, signing off.